Well, there is no information. I mean, so far, what we know is that they're continuing to use missiles. Um, there are different reports coming, in variation with each other. For instance, some Western channels are saying that actually missile attacks by Iran have reduced. Others are saying that they're still the same. Uh, and, it is really a situation where you have a cat and mouse chase. Uh, Iranians are trying to blow out Western American interceptors um, in wherever American bases are in the Middle East. On the other hand, America and Israel are trying to spend force, destroy the launchers, Iranian launchers. So it is really a chase after each other. And right now, nobody can tell how much arsenal is left. I mean, I was just listening to a report where, there were accusations, fingers pointed towards Russia, that Iran has asked it to help with providing weapons, and it says that it's not received any request, which basically means that Iran is still depending on whatever arsenal it has. Because remember what the Iranian foreign minister said, that the army units have been dispersed, central control has been withdrawn, so every unit commander has become independent, has gone independent with whatever their arsenal is, and they have instructions on how and where to use them. So that's where the play is. But I think more than a game of missiles, it's a battle of nerves. And what Iran definitely plans to do is now there are two sides of the picture. One is that recently there have been massive attacks in Azerbaijan, then in Turkey, and what Iran is claiming is that it's actually not Iran doing it, but US and Israelis doing a proxy war, trying to kind of put this wall of fire between the Arab states, the Sunni states, and the Iranian Shia state. That's one thing. But the other side of the picture is that Iran may be carrying out the attacks itself in order to increase the cost for these Muslim countries in the Persian Gulf and the larger Middle East, and sending a signal that, look, here is the cost for you. If the fire is going to come to me, it's going to spread out to you as well. And you're not going to be, I mean, even if you don't want to, but you will be dragged into this war. So make your choice which side do you stand. No, the time hasn't come as yet. I think they're watching. I think at this point in time, states like Bahrain or Oman or UAE, especially UAE and Bahrain, would expect Israel and United States. They probably have more faith in American and Israeli military power, and they probably are watching how much pressure they can exert on Iran, tire Iran out, exhaust it. I think there's an expectation that somebody would make a call and say, look, smaller units, smaller groups, and begin to surrender and say, hey, we want to be, lay down our weapons and have peace, negotiate peace. The other thing which is important is that from Iran's side, the strategy seems to be keep extending the war. And from what I hear, they're also getting ready for a civil war situation within Iran and outside Iran as well. which would completely burn out the region, including Pakistan, by the way. Uh, because if you look at the bombing map um, of America bombings in Iran, they've also bombed Iranian areas close to the Pakistani border. So both sides are trying to exert pressure. Both sides are trying to prolong the war for the other, so that the other side, expecting the other side understands, realizes, gets nervous about the rising cost, and then surrenders. Uh, that's the Iranian strategy as well, as I mentioned. So if that strategy of the Iranian part of the strategy works out, the Gulf states are going to get very exhausted. And let's also not forget that if there is a civil war, and this is what Iran is preparing for, then let's not forget that there will be definite mark on all these Persian Gulf states, and which includes Saudi Arabia. And the cost then will be so high. I mean, we're not just looking right now at reshaping of Iran. We're looking at possible reshaping of the entire Middle East. This balkanization of one country is not going to stop there. It's going to extend. Uh, and that's where the worry would begin. I mean, UAE, forever, that was a symbol of kind of stability, of economic development, of a wonderful mix between the East and the West. Um, I remember it was 2009, 2010. 2009, 2010 was when you had the first kind of a mini uprising in Iran. Uh, you know, uh, Youth, younger people protesting um, the mullah regime, and asking for greater liberties. And that is also the time exactly when Twitter became so important and famous. Because they were communicating with each other like wildfire through Twitter. Uh, so that was when Twitter actually became a political tool. Now at that time, I remember I was in Washington, and I heard there was Wali Nasser's book, who looked at what happened, and he said that uh, basically the commercial model of UAE, many countries, including many parts of the population in Iran, want to replicate that. Bring a gentle mixing of the East and the West. Iran was definitely capable of it. I mean, it's a longer history of that. But now, even that Dubai model is under threat. It's no longer stable. I mean, although the rulers of Dubai have come out, they have sent a message of confidence to people who are stranded there. There are some flights which are taking off from Dubai, rest of it. But the model would have been shaken, and especially if the civil war situation kind of comes into play. See, I think that, I mean, what do they mean by a Khomeini kind of regime? I mean, the hardliners. I think what this war has done is strengthen the hardliners in Iran. What America wants is probably a government in Iran which brings some kind of control inside Iran, but also listens to the United States, disarms, kind of distances itself from Hezbollah, Hamas, other proxies that it has around the world, and kneels down. Now, and this is something which had been talked about even before the war started. I remember this column, this report by um, you know, by a journalist, forgetting his name right at the moment, Declan Walsh. So Declan Walsh had actually done a story and arguing that if regime change would definitely or not necessarily mean a direction that America wants to take. You could have IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards, Iranian Revolutionary Guards, which are equally hardline. And I think what the Iranians would want to do is that have an Ayatollah who was certified, who was well qualified and who can be respected by the people. I mean, the tradition of an Ayatollah has been there with the Iranians for centuries. So they will have to select. And the question is, will they go after the next one? What I've been hearing is that rumors again that, even Khomenei's son, who was probably the most favorite, has been hit and killed. It could be true. I mean, considering the way United States and Israel are bombing Iran, uh, it may not be true. I mean, there were even rumors that Ahmadinejad has been killed, but then we found out that he was alive and safe. So at this point in time, I mean, look, let me give you a quick comparison to explain things. Like in Afghanistan, when Pakistan carried out its attacks, I'm not going into right or wrong of it. All I'm saying is that how people react. Even Hamid Karzai, he said, we are Afghans, we stand together. Hamid Karzai is not somebody who is Taliban's favorite. So that's where it stands. I mean, when you have foreign intervention, people tend to stand. I think we can't make any conjectures, any kind of, yeah, definitely, we can't make any conjectures about Iran until this war goes on. War will solidify cooperation between people. I mean, right now, from what I'm hearing, that even the diaspora in the West, which was very gung ho about an attack on the mullah regime, is suddenly worried. They're not, of course, they're not coming out and speaking against Trump, but they're worried that they don't want to see balkanization of the country. This is not something that is going to generate support. I think once the war is over uh, and things cool down, is when you'll see the different groupings, the tensions within. There'll definitely be tensions. Who stood at which side during the war? These are something somebody must be keeping, a chart of everybody's performance. Not consciously, but definitely keeping an eye on it. But right now, the war is still going on, and the question is, how long will it continue? Right now, I don't think United States and Israel have any intention not to destroy Iran. They are pushing on the accelerator. They will accelerate violence until and unless the power circles, the power elite in Iran surrenders. And Iran's strategy is the war is actually keeping people together and behind them. So keep at it. Where its base is, Hezbollah is still not destroyed. Hamas is still not destroyed. So these groups are there. And as long as you have people who are tired of, this hostile attitude of, Israel not kind of showing any leniency. I think in both sides, on Israel's side and on the side of the Palestinians and the Iranians, it is a matter of an existential crisis for both. I mean, where Netanyahu has taken matters, for him to surrender is out of question. unless the US sees that and puts pressure. And what we noticed was that, US was less willing to put that pressure. And but this war, if it extends and it kind of sucks in the entire region, it's not going to be to anyone's benefit. Not at the moment. I mean, it's worried because you have gas supply, you have oil supply. Very soon, prices are going to shoot up. Stock markets are going down. The financial scene is not in a happy way. So they would, of course, ask, but this is a bit of a ideological, civilizational battle as well, where Europeans don't want to take a position, and whoever is taking a position, like Spain, the UK, for instance, what they're saying is the war is illegal. They're saying Iranian regime was nasty, authoritarian, which is true. It's not that's not a fact. So what they're also saying is that the war is illegal. And it's basically also distracting attention from another war which is close to Europe's heart, which is Ukraine and Russia. And I mean, just imagine what impetus and power and inspiration this has given Moscow. But all right, if you can attack like this, so can I. There was nothing illegal about my attack on Ukraine. So, in fact, if you've noticed that there is a panic in Europe, I mean, France has offered its nuclear weapons to other European states. It's not because they think they're worried about an attack from Iran. They're worried about the future of this conflict, on their conflict with Russia. What's very noticeable is that China is just sitting and watching the situation very quietly. Now, from what I've heard, that a few months ago they did provide some weapons and technology to Iran. I don't think they're going to provide right now in the middle of this war. They don't want to be put in a position where they're seen as being on this side or the other side. And do not forget, China has very good relations with Israel too. So they would rather not, and Russia would rather not get involved directly. But I think they're worried. The outcome of the war is worrying because don't forget that the way this issue gets sorted out, the two lessons are, one, it's never happened really like this before, that a bigger country, comes and violently takes out the head of the state of another. Could happen anywhere, could be repeated. And second is that then the US and Israel come and kind of control territories which are close to Chinese and Russian interest. That means the United States expands itself, which would be very worrying for China. But I don't think that China is watching, calculating, but I don't think it wants to start a war with the United States. I mean, any direct involvement would result in another kind of attention. And then what we're looking basically at is a third world war. China is nuclear armed. So is the United States. The only difference is that the United States is headed by a president who doesn't think before, taking his gun out and shooting. He's trigger happy. He's a cowboy. So, with that cowboyish foreign policy attitude, Uh, I don't think China wants to take a risk. It's not a good sign. I mean, remember that major part of, I think, more than 35% of Chinese oil goes through Hormuz. And they've been actually talking to the Iranians, asking them not to target their ships. Uh, so are other countries. I mean, Europe is dependent. Pakistan is dependent on LNG, and now relations with Iran have almost become a complete no-no. We forget that Gilgit-Baltistan, that region, is electrified entirely by Iran. Nobody's really spoken about that as yet. A gas project uh, has been in doldrums forever because of American pressure. But for a number of countries who depend on Iranian gas, on energy supply, um, I think this is also a critical period when the developed world will begin to think of alternative energy sources, for one. And two, I mean, this is a conversation which had started even before, but it stops, it halts, and starts again. And so they've started to look at shale, etc. And the general understanding was that, uh, in fact, it's very funny when I was looking through Epstein files. And I typed Pakistan, and there was this one conversation at dinner about, the Middle East and Pakistan, and specifically said there was a dinner where they were discussing Epstein's friends, including his publicist, uh, Peggy Siegel, was attending that, and she's reporting to Epstein. And apparently, some son of a Pakistani assassinated leader was also there. No names taken. But anyway, the discussion there was that at that point in time was that Saudi Arabia is going to become less relevant for the United States because United States is diverting very fast and looking at alternative energy sources such as shale. So this is not just a story about Saudi Arabia, but the rest of the Gulf. And I think for the US and the developed world, uh, this is yet another moment of rethinking where to find alternatives in terms, in case of a crisis. If they want to control the show, then they have to look at alternatives inside. Uh, that would be definitely one of the messages, one of the takeaways from this conflict, wherever it ends and wherever it goes. It's very difficult to answer these questions. I mean, let's watch the war first, instead of jumping ahead and saying, I know this is how it will turn out. Maybe in the middle, US Donald Trump does get a bit exhausted and decides to negotiate. But what if Iran disintegrates smaller pieces? I mean, right now, one of the American strategy is to actually reach out to the Kurds, reach out to possibly to the Baloch in Iran. They're also looking. Right now, there is no act of violence from Iranian Balochistan, but and they're in fact watching the Kurds see where they go. But let's also not forget that it was just recently that where in Iraq uh, the Kurds were pushed back by the weren't welcomed by the Americans. So how do you build the trust? And will these groups actually agree to an American plan to disintegrate? I mean, all this uh, chest thumping about boots on ground, I think more than boots on ground, what could facilitate boots on ground, American boots on ground in Iran, is if first these groups, Kurdish, Turkic, they control different regions. Iran is then divided into smaller pieces. There is Azerbaijan, the Azeris there who don't like the Iranians. Let's not forget that in a couple of years ago, the Azerbaijan-Armenia war. It's interesting that Pakistan, Israel, and Turkey were on Azerbaijan side, and Iran and Russia were on the Armenian side. So Azerbaijanis are no friend. So anyway, the point is that if Iran gets balkanized, broken into, then perhaps uh, boots on ground becomes a possibility. Right now, it's not. American boots, I don't see them there. But a weakened Iran, an exhausted Iran is definitely there. Uh, Politically, it will be exhausted as well. Rebuilding it, bringing people together. I mean, the Iranian currency is down to nothing. Uh, Sanctions have, as it is, uh, really exhausted the place. And what is keeping people together at the moment is war. It's the honor of not capitulating. But once the war is over, there'll be demands. You'll have hungry people, people wanting things. That's when the real problem will begin. So I think whatever way we may look, even if Iran survives this war, the outcome of the war is much more difficult to withstand and survive. It's going to have an impact definitely on the entire region. Depends on how much of it gets sucked in. I mean, right now, countries of the Gulf, Saudi Arabia are not responding to Iranian attacks because they don't want to start something which will never get stopped. So, and Iran is being provocative because it knows that these countries are American friends. Suck them in, make them realize the cost of what they've done. So it's back and forth. So, what will be the ultimate shape of the war? Just very quickly. Two, I see a very exhausted entire Iran. But secondly, how much of the Gulf gets sucked in? Uh, of course, and let's not forget, right now, Iran has not activated the biggest weapon in its arsenal, which is proxy war in each of these countries. I mean, in Pakistan, for instance, if we took a much harder position, I mean, we've sent a message, Pakistan has sent a message, the foreign minister saying that, look, we have an agreement with Saudi Arabia, and you keep attacking it, so please don't attack it. But knowing fully well that if Pakistan becomes threatening, Iran can get threatening too. They haven't, they would, you know, activate the Al Murabitun and all those gangs who had traveled and fought in Syria and come back, very well trained, and right now very angry as well. So just imagine, Pakistan after Iran has the largest number of Shia population. Saudi Arabia, its oil districts are almost completely Shia. Bahrain. So, if you have proxy wars going on, uh, lone wolf attack kind of a situation where people will attack not just because they're ordered every time, but because uh, the the larger war cry is that, yeah, go and attack. Now, in that case, there's going to be so much violence. Uh, and I'm thinking very hard that after this war, what actually will be the shape of the Middle East? Will also be a very exhausted Middle East.